Good morning, everybody, and a happy Friday morning. The torture continues because in this episode, number 3, we had Chef Roy Choi. This was a mess, but some more stuff came out. Before we get to that, let's look at this. Now, the papers have been coming out and they have been absolutely brutal, as you can see. And believe it or not, Variety magazine, their go-to, has come out again and has basically just attacked Meghan again. You guys know that this magazine was pro-Sussex. Absolutely not anymore. But what they point out is that this entire, With Love Meghan is a celebration of nothing but the Duchess of Sussex. No amount of praise seems enough. Every episode, there's a jumbled timeline. Meghan has friends of hers, famous or not, and then jumps back in time to show how she prepared the food or the table. It's an ego project, which we knew as soon as these pictures came out. They said that she's completely incompetent in the kitchen, and the way she talks about things in the kitchen feels as canned as a limited edition American Riviera Orchard preserve. According to this article, the show plays out like a forced march, one in which Meghan's guests must, at the price of sharing an afternoon with her, they have to praise her, and which they do liberally. They pointed out in the article that this is the last stand at holding on to her place in the public eye, and all of this effort is carried out in an on-camera attitude that resembles Meghan's on-camera wardrobe, well-tailored and beige. Ouch! It's being said that this show is not a fun experience. It's queasy, it's exhausting, and it strains for aspiration and relatability in a way that just never gels. I mean, in one episode, she says we don't have time for pot changes, but yet she has time to make candles from beeswax, right? That's not usually an activity for the time-starved. Or where she says, I never get fussy with place settings, and the camera's showing a fussy place setting. You guys get the point. All right, let's move on to number 3, which totally missed the mark. Let's go. So episode 3 starts off, and you can tell Meghan is acting, and it's really bad. And that song from the Archies, Sugar Da Na 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 Na, is playing. And Meghan goes, Roy Choi is coming over. Now, one thing I know about Roy, he's also from LA. And is that he loves donuts. So let's try to make some donuts. And it's total acting. And she can't act. So again, we're going to sift some flour. We're going to do this. She goes, and cue the Archies. And you hear sugar, da-na-na-na, da-da-da-na, while the sugar is being sifted. Then she goes, we're going to add melted butter. We're going to add flour. We're going to add eggs. But she doesn't tell you how much of anything. So you're not getting a recipe. She's simply just throwing stuff into a bowl. And when I was little, while she's shaking, she goes, oh yeah, I used to work at a donut stuff, at this little place. And then she goes, oh yeah, my kids would love this for breakfast. What kid wouldn't love donuts for breakfast? And then she's talking about how yummy it's going to be. And this is so much fun. I hope he likes these. And she's putting her dead flowers on the donuts like she does everything else. She starts talking about Roy Choi. Oh, yes, he's an iconic LA chef, and he's great with Korean food, and that's a staple of Los Angeles culture. So I thought we could make some classic fried chicken together. So he shows up and she goes, did you see these? I made this matcha for you and the donuts from scratch. I hope you like them. I'm so happy you're here. And he goes, I was blown away that I was even asked to do the show. She goes, are you joking? He goes, yes, because I'm a huge fan. And with that, she runs over and throws herself on him and gives him a hug. Then they start talking about donuts from someplace called Randy's. And oh yeah, we're just 2 kids of LA. And did you know LA was the donut capital of the world? So he says, listen, Meghan, we're going to make pickles, a crudité platter, and we're going to eat kimchi with it. And then eventually we're going to make this like Korean style fried chicken. This is where the show really loses me. She goes, I'm your sous chef and I did everything way ahead of time. And so right off the bat, she goes, I brined the chicken. She goes back in time and says, okay, he sent me this recipe and it's brine and it's what you have to use. So I'm like, wait a minute. First thing, what is brine? She never explains what it is. She starts throwing things into the pot. I need a lemon. I need a lime. I need orange. I need milk. I need salt. I need sugar. But she, once again, she doesn't tell you how much of anything to put in so that you possibly could make this brine yourself at home. This is what I don't understand about this entire series. And she never explains what brining is or why you would want to do it. And that is part of the problem with this. She wants you to buy her stock pot. She wants you to use her knife. And she wants you to have this lifestyle brand. But she doesn't explain to you what it is she's doing, how she's doing it, what's in it, or why you should do it, if that makes sense. So that's why nobody's following this. And that's why, by the way, it's being panned right and left. So all of a sudden, they're going to start making pickles. And she goes, oh, here's the bonito, here's the furikake. But again, no explanation of what these things are. She's just throwing things onto the table. So he says, we're going to make this sauce. Just throw in the salt, throw in the garlic. Again, absolutely no explanation as to what they're putting in, or how much they're putting in, or does the order that they're putting it in matter? They're just throwing stuff into a pot to cook. And I think that's one of the biggest problems I have with this specific episode, because this guy's a professional chef and he basically just wants to, cook. And she's just like, yeah, let's go because I'm on par with you and you're leaving everybody else in the dust. That's exactly what was going on here. Another thing, he says, oh, do you have any daikon? Oh, yeah, there it is. And he pulls this thing out of the fridge. I've never heard of daikon. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's used for. And they give absolutely no explanation of what these things are that he's cooking up with her. And of course, it goes back to Meghan and her childhood. And I love to garden and I share it with my kids. She's always talking about the kids. You never see them. With that, they go out to the garden and he goes, oh, look at that fei shuang. Yeah, it's not her house. So she's going through the garden, picking vegetables and things that she wants. And he says, grab some strawberries. We're going to pickle some strawberries. And she's like, huh? Never heard of pickled strawberries before. He also says, by the way, I can't garden, and if I touch anything out here, it will die. The two of them, by the way, then eat some peppers. She says they have heat. He says they don't. Yeah, this real riveting stuff. So now he's chopping stuff, he's working, and she's just kind of running back and forth in the kitchen, watching him while he's doing the work. Because let's face it, he's a professional chef. She not. So they pickle all the stuff that they want to pickle. And then they're moving on to a kimchi paste. Once again, I have no clue what kimchi is, but they say you can use what they're making as a fermentation for things, but also as a dip that you can eat right away. And they bring over a tray. Once again, a ton of stuff. No clue how much of anything. And he basically just has Meghan dump everything in the blender by saying, just think of it as a margarita. Well, she got real excited about that one. So she throws everything in the blender and they make this kimchi paste. Of course, when it was done, everybody grabbed a spoon and they tried it. And she even gave some to the guy behind the camera. She goes, look, his glasses are sweating. I knew he couldn't handle it. I'm like, really? Okay, so they're saying it's going to be a dip and they're going to make a kimchi with it. It's about this time that he says, those crudite plates can be boring. And she takes offense to that and goes, excuse me, my plates are not boring, essentially. She also says these plates are the only way her children will eat vegetables. And then he brings up Immaculate Heart School, the school her father paid for. This is where their conversation took place. He goes, I'm going to make a watermelon kimchi. And she goes, do you ever listen to music when you cook? And he goes, yeah, I listen to death metal and speed metal. And she goes, what's that? And he goes, it's dark. And she goes, well, that doesn't sound like the joy of cooking, after she gives him the stink eye. And he goes, well, we all have different facets to us. And she goes, oh, yeah, I guess we're all multifaceted folks. And he goes, yeah, it's good for butchering. So anyway, he talks about how he cuts the stuff into squares and then they're breaking up other vegetables because they're going to make a quick kimchi, a traditional style kimchi. I still have no clue what the hell kimchi is. What it comes down to is this is now his cooking show. He says, I try to defy the rules when I'm cooking. It's like she's just there for the side bit. It's actually his show today. So next up, he says, okay, we're going to do sauces and salts for the chicken. And it's just like before. They're just dumping stuff into a blender and they're not explaining how much of anything. And you're just watching a couple of people, cooking, and you have no clue what it is they're doing. So finally, we move on to the chicken, and he goes, did you parboil it for me? And she goes, yes, I did. Again, I have no idea what parboiling chicken is, so I don't know what they're talking about. But the two of them seem very pleased with themselves because the second part of this chicken, remember she did the brining, was to take it out after it had been in the brine overnight and basically, I don't know what she did with it. But the next thing you know, they're cooking the chicken in the grease and pulling it out and talking about how delicious it is. Guys, I got to be honest. At this point, they totally lost me. I stopped listening. I was completely disinterested. There was nothing that I related to. They had nothing on here that I could make, that I could do. She's dancing around to Latin jazz music. He's telling her we're going to do things. Nobody explained what they were doing. And at the end, they were like, oh, look what we did. And come on, guys, come on over and try it. But in the end, I was completely disinterested. It wasn't like the Mindy Kaling one. This one was just flat out. I couldn't get through the whole thing. I mean, it's just terrible, really bad. So episode 2 was painful. Episode 3 was flat out boring. I'm not kidding. It was such a waste of my time. I'm sure this guy is a good cook, but he doesn't translate well to TV. At least he doesn't with Meghan next to him. All right, we will see you Saturday morning for episode number 4.